So welcome on behalf of the Kearney International Women Forum 2022 to this first spotlight session on the program. I'm Marina Catino, I'm partner at Kearney in the Strategic Operation Practice. And thank you to my guest, Nicolas Ruffini, that is a partner in our energy and process industry practice, for taking the time to join me in this conversation around companies' diversity, equity, and inclusion commitment. So Nicola, we know that the expectation from both consumers and employees have never been greater to demonstrate, let's say, meaningful commitment to DI. In your experience, in the energy sector, where sustainability is really the backbone of the evolution, and I would say also of the transformation of the company, do you see a risk that the environmental challenge is taking a primary role over diversity and inclusion objectives, and why?
So first of all, thank you for the question. That is actually a good question. Let's start from the ESG equation. So what's in these three letters, ESG? The first one, the E stands for environment, of course, no? And it is a priority, in particular in our sector. Companies are strongly investing on this area to push us, let's say, towards a cleaner and decarbonized world. And those companies that are doing this and that set an ESG strategy focused on sustainability can also gain access to green loans and sustainability-linked loans. So far, companies and governments have made a lot of progress in environmental sustainability. However, the progress is still insufficient and significant impact is still needed. So environmental sustainfsustainability is still an imperative and must stay at the center of government and companies' agendas. If you look at companies' business plans, not only in the energy sector but in all the sectors, I would say, they are all shaped around sustainability and related aspects. But what about the other part of the ESG equation? So the S and the G. In the ESG equation, the S is the social impact and the G is related to the governance factor. So to come to your question, these two factors have been probably less under the lens due to the urgency about sustainability, decarbonization and net zero objectives and all the targets that governments and companies have, even though many initiatives have been launched in this area. More and more companies are learning that it is crucial to get focus also in these two areas, and in particular on diversity, equity and inclusion, so on the DEI. But while more than 65 or 70% of firms indicate that the DEI is an important priority, only 1/3 measures the DEI outcomes. And in addition to this, with the COVID pandemic, has brought under the spotlight even more well-being, safety, and the fair compensation across the economy. We all know that similar to previous crises, like in 2019, the economic downturn has impacted women and minority disproportionately. From recent public studies, I would add that women's jobs are about 2 times more vulnerable in this crisis than men's jobs. So given these trends, energy companies are under pressure to take even bolder ESG initiatives to ensure a continued access to investment by institutional investors. And here comes the need to put even more the S and the G at the center of energy companies' agendas, creating a sense of urgency and priority also on these two areas that have to permeate also this aspect and not only the environmental topics.
Great, very interesting, Nicola. And talking specifically maybe on the energy sector, which is your focus, how much do you see that diversity strategies have already been developed and, let's say, implemented in the companies you are working with?
Well, let's start saying that the energy sector probably it is not the most advanced and balanced in terms of gender balance. There are some studies that highlight that women are around 20% of the workforce as a rough average. If we look at the more modern and clean, let me say, renewable energy, we have a slightly higher percentage, around 30-35%, but we are still far from the parity. Though, as I said, many energy companies have launched initiatives in this field and are putting effort in this area to balance the S and the G in the ESG equation. Let me give you some examples. Many players in the energy sector are part of wider programs to address the gender inequality issues. One of these is the Equal by 30, that is a commitment by public and private organizations to work towards equal pay, equal leadership, and equal opportunities for women by 2030. So you can find in this program partners like the International Energy Agency or other energy players like Enel, Edison, or EDF, for example. And taking one of these companies like Enel, they committed on an action plan within the Equal by 30 campaign that includes ensuring the 50% representation of women in the initial phases of the recruiting process, and they are now, if we take the 2021 half-year results, they are around 46%, just to give you a number. And the other commitment is to increase the number of women in managerial positions, so managers or middle management. And they reached around 30%, if I don't get wrong. So, as I said, there are virtuous examples within the energy sector, and important steps have been taken in the gender parity direction. Nevertheless, energy companies have to be aware that there are challenges ahead. Why? Because we know that organizations with inclusive culture are 8 times more likely to achieve better business outcomes, 3 times more likely to be high performing, and 2 times as likely to meet or exceed the financial targets. So if we consider the attractiveness for investors of ESG focused and ESG balanced companies in their portfolio, the challenge for them becomes essential. As ESG oriented investors turn their attention to social factors, many energy companies might not be well positioned to make the case that their corporate culture and governance structure reach the level of diversity that is needed. For this reason, it is fundamental for them to continuously review and update their own ESG strategy and positioning, to put at the center of their agenda not only the E, the environment, that is crucial and still a priority, but also the other aspects related to the ESG. So the inclusiveness, for example, to address potential weaknesses that might impact not only their performance, but also the interest of investors for them as an asset in their portfolio.
And these are all very positive signs of the fact that companies are trying to take DEI to new heights, as we say in our program. So I would like really to thank you, Nicola, for this insight and contribution to this moment of reflection that we have around the importance of gender equity and diversity. And I see you on the next Spotlight session. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.